All right, so by no means am I like any sort of professional when it comes to shooting Super 8. I'm like absolutely a rookie at this. I've shot 2 rolls of Super 8 so far. That's pretty much it, or at least 2 that have gotten scanned and developed. But that said, I've had a blast shooting it, and I think I've kind of figured out the best way to get started shooting Super 8 this year. So the first step, obviously, to shooting a Super 8 is finding a camera, which is probably the hardest part, honestly. I got kind of lucky and I borrowed my friend Phil's Super 8 for the first roll that I shot through. It was for a friend's wedding, and they kind of wanted something more like, I guess, filmic and more retro kind of feeling and vintage. So it kind of obviously felt like something where I should shoot Super 8, and that's what I did. I think Phil has like a Kinon P20 XL or something like that. But overall, just a great camera. So after working that wedding, I decided that I kind of wanted to get my own Super 8 and, kind of just push myself to learn more about it. Luckily, a friend of mine had a Super 8 camera that he hadn't been using, and he offered to sell it to me for a pretty affordable price. And that's actually what I shot my second roll of film through. And I think that was our Super 8 video that I shot at Disneyland, as well as some other random clips that Carly and I shot just while we were out and about. But yeah, overall, just really happy with the look of it and just really enjoyed shooting it. It's a Kinon like 213p something XL. It's a pretty small Super 8. It doesn't really have as many features. And so with that, I kind of realized I wanted to get something a little less point and shoot feeling and a little more like controlled over with some like the settings on the Super 8 camera. So with the focus on finding like a Super 8 camera with more like kind of manual focus, manual settings, I ended up just kind of searching online initially, and it was kind of tough at first. Most of the things were on eBay. Here's my cat. She's arrived. She's here to hang out. This is Nimbus. Say hi. Okay. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so starting off, I was looking at websites, on like eBay and stuff like that. I found some local film shops that were selling Super 8 cameras, but everything felt really just not like overpriced necessarily, but just very much like a much more costly investment than I was willing to get into at that point. So I was pretty much willing to just kind of like let the Super 8 dreams kind of die there and just kind of work with what I had. Then I kind of found Goodwill's website somehow, and I guess Goodwill, they take all of their higher end kind of electronics, some of their higher end brands of clothing, and they post them on their website now. So you buy those off of that. It's called like goodwillfinds.com. And they had a surprising amount of Super 8 cameras, and none of them were battery tested. None of them were film tested. So it's kind of a risk you take. But I did find this Minolta XL401 for like $140. And I ended up just buying that because it just seemed like a, decent price point. And if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And I was kind of willing to live with that. So when it arrived, thankfully it did work, and it has full aperture controls, more manual zoom controls, more like just general control over it. It also has an intervalometer, which was really cool. It can fire off like single frames, which was just a really cool thing to have as like just an extra. With that, I've shot a couple rolls through it for a project that I was just in Palm Springs for, and I need to scan and to get those scanned and developed, which actually is a good segue into the next part of this. So obviously the next step after that is finding a good lab to scan and develop your film. I thought this was going to end up being the thing that priced me out of shooting Super 8 kind of consistently for work or just for fun, because I found that a lot of labs charge a lot of money for it, and I get it. It's very much an industry that's a very specific thing, like a very niche thing, but at some points, like some of the labs that I was looking at were charging almost like $200 to $300 for per roll of Super 8 for development scanning at like 4K quality. Pro 8mm in Burbank actually does scan film at about $60 a roll, or develop and scan film for about $60 a roll, but it's at 720p quality and not in log or ProRes. Granted, ProRes is definitely overkill for anyone who's shooting Super 8 just for fun. ProRes, 4K, log, none of that's really necessarily like a necessity, I guess. But for me, when I was delivering over like the Super 8 video over to my friends for their wedding, I wanted to make sure that I had like some flexibility in editing and color grading, as well as just like deliver something that looked premium to them. So I did a little bit more research. I ended up finding a lab in Colorado called the Negative Space. It's run by Nikki Coyle at Preserve Film on Instagram. And it's kind of mind-blowing because they make it so affordable to develop and scan Super 8 and like just make it affordable and by extension, you know, to shoot Super 8. I sent over 2 rolls to them and they were priced at $45 a roll for 6.5K video in log in ProRes. And they were massive file sizes when they sent the files to me, but they also did the job of putting all my film on a reel, sending that back to me as well. So I have the physical reel of the Super 8 film that I shot, which was really cool. And overall, it's just a very friendly process, you know, a very easy process. Like their website order form is really straightforward. You know, Nikki will communicate when the film arrives to the lab, as well as like when the film is getting sent over to you, and the film reel itself is going to get shipped over to you as well. And I think honestly, that's one of the things where you look at some of the bigger labs in bigger cities like, you know, LA or New York, and they're charging, I looked at the prices, like they're charging $450-ish for the exact same quality. And at $45, you know, it's literally a tenth of the price of those bigger labs. So for me, honestly, that was kind of like a really cool moment of like finding somebody who's trying to make shooting on film affordable for just anyone in the general public. You know, I think anyone who's starting out, like finding a lab like the Negative Space is a bit of a cheat code, but it's one that I'm more than happy to share and not gatekeep, because they do just such a great job. And like, I think it's just something that there's so many people out there in the world like me who like wanted to start out shooting Super 8 or wanted to just like, you know, try it, and they just make it such an easy process. So all that to say, I feel like I've kind of found like this really efficient way to get started shooting Super 8 in 2024. And I just kind of wanted to share that because I think it's just really cool when more people can kind of get into different mediums. And like for me, you know, I hadn't shot any Super 8, but my dad had shot Super 8 cameras because that's what he had growing up. And I think it was just really cool for me to kind of reconnect with that and like get that very vintage kind of look. And I think especially, you know, for me with like weddings, there's some people who really like that look, and this just means that I can kind of better service my clients and help them out with this. Anyways, that's it for today. I still don't know how to end a YouTube video. This is rough. Just gonna say bye. The end. It's like that one scene in 21 Jump Street where Jonah Hill's talking to like Korean Jesus, and he's like, I don't know how to end a prayer. The end.
I don't really know how to end a prayer. The end? Yeah.